Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today, as you guys can obviously see from the inks sitting before you and the title which I will be giving to this video, I will be swatching the Wearingeul Dante inspired, Divine Comedy inspired inks, Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. I got Inferno and Purgatorio from the recent Memorial Day sale from Atlas Stationers. I've been on the fence about Paradiso for quite some time, ever since they first came out with the Dante set. Not because I thought it wasn't a good color or anything like that. It just, just going back and forth. Is this just too light for like practical, realistic writing? Maybe this would be better as an art ink. I mean, of course, no offense to Wearingeul, they make so many beautiful inks, but I do agree with many people who feel they're kind of like, Ferris wheel press. They have like, great concepts, like lots of dough spent on marketing, but they just seem to care a little bit more, like, well, not for all the inks, but it just seems like many times they seem to just like put more focus and emphasis on like the matching the mood and the theme of the ink. In particular for Wearingeul, their big thing is like world literature and mythology. So yeah, this color really matches the mood and the things going on in this like particular book or poem or whatever in this myth, but they don't really necessarily translate so well to actual writing that's, practical, you can read back, unless the goal, for example, like Wendy Darling in their Peter Pan themed set, that's practically unreadable. Maybe their goal is to be like an invisible ink type of writing, or in like a secret diary you don't want anyone to read back, or like making notes as a spy or in a secret club or something like that. So anyway, let's just start getting down with it. Of course, I will go in the order from Inferno. So this is totally backwards from what I'm looking at. Inferno, and then Purgatorio, and then finally Paradiso. I have three different paintbrushes, so I don't need to worry about like rinsing it off. Oh, is it still sticking to the brush? So I'll have a clean, completely guaranteed clean brush for every swatch. And unfortunately, the little glass dip pen I was using, it was from Dominant Industry, the ink muddler, which was one of my free gifts from Goldspot for the last fountain pen day. The nib, the tip, I don't know what happened to this. It's like part of it, I don't know how to explain it, like, one side of the nib like broke off. I didn't even notice that at all, but the other side was like fine, and so it was getting like really weird, like chunky lines when I was trying to write with it. And then eventually I had to get it into just the right angle to like write with it properly, so it wasn't like a huge blob of ink on the swatch cards. And then like the other like half, the other side of the glass nib broke off, so unfortunately all I have to work with now is the muddler part on the end for, like swatching and other things like that. So I'm, back to using my Wearingeul dip pen. And I do have a Jacques Herbin glass dip pen that has a little bit of a bigger like nib, so that might not necessarily be so, practical for doing swatches and stuff like that, but we'll just, going to see how it goes. This is totally backwards from what I'm looking at. I know I need a much better camera than my freaking computer. Let's take out Inferno. It's going to be black. I am thinking about, not thinking, I really would like to do copy all 14,233, I believe, lines of the Divine Comedy in the original medieval Florentine Tuscan Italian, and it would be great to use these inks for it, but I decided maybe not necessarily use the Purgatorio ink for all of Purgatorio, because, I have the Seven Deadly Sins inks from Diamine, so that would be great to use for that. And it's going to be like a blackish color shimmered ink. Is that another thing in it, or is that just looking at something in the box? Oh, looks like, unfortunately, it looks like there was kind of some kind of ink spill in the box. I don't know what's going on there. It doesn't look like anything is leaking. We're going to, see what's like happening there. Maybe it was like ink that, and yeah, there's like a smudge on here. Maybe that was just, and I'm not seeing any like, breaks in the glass, and nothing is like coming out. So maybe that was just like a weird snafu when someone was, packing that ink. So, and this is, I believe this is shimmer ink. No, it says a standard ink. I had thought this was a shimmer ink because it seemed to look shimmery when I saw those swatches, but maybe they do have a lot of, black shimmer inks like Hades and the Black Tulip and the Black Cat. So maybe they're all just, kind of starting to run together in my mind. Let's see, this is going to be And I guess it would be nice to have like a little bit more variety in black inks. I mean, contrary to popular belief, black is more than just, black, boring, that's it. There can be like so many different like types of shades and hues, and some black inks are blacker than others, and many have more of like a dark purpley undertone, and of course then they have like black shimmer. So what color is the shimmer? Is it like silvery or dark violet or gold or bronze or something like that? So it all, depends on what kind of black you're looking for. Maybe you just went like maybe closer to gray. But yeah, it's a nice ink. A lot of people have said it's like closer to a medium dry instead of like a wet ink. But I am really liking it so far. I like to fill as much of the swatch card as possible. I just feel it gives like the highest, like the best possible representation if you're just like using like so much of the ink instead of just a little tiny bit. That was a mistake I made when I first started doing swatch cards. I thought like, oh, just a little bit, like maybe like a third of this or something, then use like the rest of the space in the bottom to write the ink. Now I write the name of the ink on the bottom and the brand up at the top. So, that's just a style I have come to do. And this is this Wearingeul and Fair. I really thought this was a shimmer ink. I got really confused. I really did. I thought I had remembered people in videos and stuff saying this was a shimmer ink. So that's very like different. So Inferno. Yeah, that's coming through a very nice black. As I've said in some videos, it feels, kind of right that like most roller balls and ballpoints do come with like black ink as a default, and that's just like how it is for, so much of history. But you want to have more fun with, well, at least many people want to have more, fun with their fountain pens, all sorts of different other colors. But sometimes it's just, nice to get back to your roots, like, black is the classic default ink color for a reason. For like so many centuries they had no other ink color. Wearingeul. I would have to dip it again. That's another thing about this metal steel dip pen nib. It does not usually hold ink like nearly as long as the glass dip pens do, but that's just like something you have to get used to when you're like, dealing with a dip pen that's metal instead of glass. I'm sorry if this is rambly. This video is completely unscripted, and that's, yeah, it's a very nice dark color. Of course, I will turn them all around when they are finished. And that's, yeah, this looks kind of shimmery in the thing. I'm just totally confused. Why did I think this was a shimmer ink when it's like clearly not, and I'm seeing no shimmer particles in the bottom? That's just like very not what I was expecting at all, but not necessarily in a bad way. It's just I thought it would be like different. And this is Purgatorio, my absolute favorite canticle of the Commedia. There's like so much like beautiful like drama and emotion and intensity and like tension. Like Virgil's character is like, it completely goes in the opposite direction and unravels. He's the unwavering like voice of common sense, intelligence, and reason, and he starts making more and more mistakes and doesn't know what to do. And just I love Purgatorio so much. It's really a shame so many people, they DNF the Commedia after they finish Inferno. They think it's 3 books. No, it's 1 book with 3 parts. Well, technically it's like a epic poem, not like a book novel as we understand it in the modern era. But if you only read the first third of any book, you don't really understand it. And I have a prior video talking about like why you should read the entire Divine Comedy and not just stop after Inferno. Like one reason Dante didn't want to leave his readers on a low, sad, like depressing, heartbreaking note. He wanted us to climb up into the highest of the highs with him, like regain his faith and like, get back in touch with his, the good things in life, his values, like stop being depressed, just like realize what you are. Sometimes you have to sink to the lowest, saddest, most hopeless point, most ugliest point possible for you to start climbing up to higher and higher, like happier, more hopeful places. That's just like the way Dante wanted us to do it. But obviously I'll leave a link down below at the end of the video so you guys can check that video. And this is also a standard ink. I do know Paradiso is the shimmer ink of this, unless that was yet another mistake and like people just on social media were not informed very well. This does, I guess, clean up a little bit better than the glass dip pen, but for some reason I accidentally like pushed the nib up into this, and now I can't really pull it out all the way to swap it with the other nibs this dip pen set came with. But like hopefully it's going to basically get most of the ink out of it. And this is yeah, where did I, oh, right here, it's right next to me, my little set. So this is to be Purgatorio, my favorite. I'm really like so overdue to get back to making more Dantean videos, but I said in a recent video the reason I haven't is because I just pretty much running out of like storage space to airdrop and videos back and forth and then like edit them, and particularly because almost all my Dantean videos I've made over the last few years, they heavily use like images, like of course, you know, artwork illustrating the life of Dante and Beatrice and his wonderful poem, and just like other things in general, maybe like old like illuminated manuscript pages and things like that. And so without like illustrative text, those videos just really aren't like what they're supposed to be. So Purgatorio, yeah, this is definitely a light ink. Did I get enough on the brush? Yeah, a lot of, yeah, that's definitely like very light, but you know, if you use a broader nib, that problem might be solved. Again, like this was another one I was kind of on the fence about, but I love Purgatorio so much, and I did see it looking pretty good in some of the other pens people were using. But you know, sometimes the way a color appears in a swatch isn't necessarily how it appears when you're actually using like a nib to write with it. And this is kind of like a reddish, pinkish brown, like a mix of all of those colors. And like sometimes inks they go down like, oh, it's so dry, or like a color I'm not really that personally into, but oh wow, that's awesome, it's drying up much darker than I expected, or like it goes down like dull gray like a pencil, but it ends up like lavender or lilac when it's all dried and said and done. So you know, it just all depends on the ink. Sometimes I would, you know, have to play around with this for a little bit, maybe just dip test it with like a regular fountain pen before actually putting it into the converter, like even eyedroppering for like a whole like even more ink capacity. So yeah, this isn't my favorite color. I mean, I do like, you know, dusty like brownish pinks. Thought I would never get into that kind of color so much, but you know, I probably would have like chosen a slightly different color for Purgatory, or at least made this a little bit darker. I'm not complaining, but you know, I'm not obviously not the one who was like, you know, making these inks and responsible for these decisions. We'll see how it's going to dry up. So make sure the screen doesn't fade out on me while I'm making the video. It's so annoying when the screen suddenly goes dark and I have to like wake it up, and it makes me look so freaking unprofessional when I am doing that. Yeah, this is very light. So, but I am glad I have it, even though it's like, you know, kind of on the very much on the lighter side, because I'm such a huge Dante file. How could I not have these inks? Let's see, Purgatorio. Yeah, that seems a little bit better. And sometimes they do like write differently, as I said, than they appear when you're swatching it. But this probably would not be like, you know, a go-to ink for me, just on account of it is, you know, a fair bit lighter than I personally would prefer to write with. And then dip it again. It just, you have to go over the letters a few times to just make them a little bit darker, like light, subtle, like pastel-y kind of inks. They're just like not my style at all. Nothing against people who enjoy that type of, you know, color and shade and hue, but for me, I just want an ink to look, you know, bright and, you know, on the darker side. Wearingeul is such a long name for the ink. Yeah, definitely on the lighter side. I know I sound like a broken record. I've been like going gangbusters, like making up for lost time, swatching almost all of my inks over the last week or so. I like finally decided I don't think I have to do a video every single time I swatch inks, particularly because of the aforementioned like running out of space issue until I get some more like external storage. I'm even like running out of space on my flash disk, so I know I have to save all of my videos on my computer cloud drive. Yeah, that's very much lighter than I personally am used to, and it's like looks kind of, I don't know if this is the particular type of cardstock or maybe this is just, maybe I put too much ink or something. It looks kind of like feathery when I'm seeing it start to dry up. You can see all these like little bits and pieces, and then we'll do the final one on Paradiso, which is going to be definitely the lightest one. Let's see if that really is like too light to practically and realistically write with, or maybe it is a pleasant surprise, particularly in a broader nib. I do have plenty of other like bluish types of inks, like lots and lots of blues if I do want to do the Paradiso transcription in some kind of ethereal type of shade of blue. And here is the little swatch card. Yeah, that's definitely a light blue, but at least it's not as pale, like borderline unreadable as Wendy Darling. That's one ink you can take that to the freaking bank. Don't think I will ever buy the Wendy Darling ink from Wearingeul in the glass bead game. That's such a light, like pinkish kind of color. I think it has blue sparkles. I mean, again, like great concepts and themes and moods they're evoking, really matching the things going on in these like works of literature and these stories from mythology and folklore. But again, like you really do want ink to be readable. That's the whole reason you use ink to write with it, unless certain colors of inks in their lineup are primarily meant to be intended as just like art inks. Yeah, and here are the sparkles. They look kind of, I think they're like silvery, or maybe they're kind of like a light blue type of shimmer. As I've said so many times, like sparkly, not sparkly, shimmer inks, they can be a pain in the what, because you constantly have to shake and agitate them if you're like using them for artwork or like doing a swatch. Like, oh, are they settled to the bottom already? Was I fast enough? Am I going to get a swatch that has no shimmers in it because I just talked for 3 minutes until I actually bothered dipping my tool into the ink? That just drives me batty when people are doing videos. No, of course, nothing against them, but it just seems like, do you understand like shimmer ink? So you shook it up and then you spend 5 minutes talking to your audience about something about the ink or the brand or your inky journey or whatever, and then by the time you actually dip it in, like, well, surprise, there's no shimmer because it all settled in that time you were just like blabbing on camera. So hopefully that's like more than good enough to get something. This is a larger brush than the others. This is a 10 mil brush and the others are 8 mil. Like 8 mil is equivalent to 0 gauge in the measurement system, and 10 mil is a double 0 gauge. That's a really nice shimmer, but it's really very, very light. I can see it like a little bit darker in the places where it's like pooling, but again, it is like borderline unreadable, at least from what I'm seeing so far. I have to like shake it up again because that's just the nature of the game of shimmer inks. Didn't have to shake too much. It's just they seem to be like already settling onto the bottom. You have to go so freaking fast when you do the swatch cards. Yeah, that's looking bit darker blue as I'm putting more down, and it's a very pretty effect. But again, like, I would have to use a really, really broad nib for this to like really like showcase and pop. And maybe if I used a smaller like medium or something, or fine, I would have to go over the letters multiple times for it to actually like show up. Well, I'm gonna do a third shake for the swatch because I do want to make sure I get it as dark as possible. Like, relatively speaking, light inks are probably never going to be like what I prefer to like write with. It's more of like an art type of ink, but again, I am glad I got it to complete the set, being such a lover of Dante. How could I not? And I guess this fulfills my like not commitment, just like maybe it is like the word I'm blanking for is commitment, like determination or something, to do more Dante themed videos. Maybe this can slowly be my way back, and I am hopefully going to be getting more storage space soon. That is, yeah, that's definitely looking like a, no one would ever mistake that for like dark blue, but it seems leaning more towards the medium side of the blue spectrum when I've put down, that much ink on the swatch card. Now let's just wipe off the dip pen, get the like water off of it, and we'll of course I have to shake it up yet again, and then just see if the writing sample looks noticeably different, either in a bad or in a good way from the actual swatch. So let's get out. I really wish someone would invent like a agitating little like machine or like desk thing, like a Newton's cradle. Is that the type of device where it just like shakes and shakes and shakes, and you don't have to worry about constantly like capping it up and shaking it over and frickin' over and over again? That's coming up a little bit. Well, of course, it always comes out like darker and thicker when you're writing with the writing on a swatch card, because there's like more ink stuck on it. I have to shake it up again, and if something, a little bit of ink slipped onto my computer, just like dab that up. That's good. I mean, I do like shimmer inks, but I can understand why some people are starting to feel they're like oversaturated. They're way too much like work, and particularly if you're using them for like swatching and dip pens or artwork, because you have to go through this laborious process every single time you do it. I'll shake it again. Ew. See, like that, it just had a little thing like onto the card. I'll have to dab that up. I was not expecting that to happen, but at least it's light enough that it didn't make a huge like permanent blob on the card. Paradiso. I know there's no ink on the nib. Yet another stupid mistake, but it's part of the learning process. Maybe I couldn't write on that because of all the shimmer particles. I am trying to be as like fast and cost effective as I am with like making my videos. Is that? Oh, there was I guess a little bit caught on the back of it. Paradiso. There it's writing again. Paradiso. Paradiso. Yeah, that is like just a huge mess of like shimmer particles. I guess I'll have to. Right. Well, it's obvious I'm writing like Paradiso, but it's just like that was a huge like F up. Oh. Sometimes these things do happen when you're like writing on the swatch card. Yeah, I don't know. There's lots of like bubbles on the back, so I guess that's what made that. Oh, no, I shouldn't have done that, but there. At least it clears off easily. I'm not going to attempt like writing on that part of the card again. I obviously know it's like, going to leak out the back of the nib, like no matter what I do. Wearingeul. Another shake up. This is one reason why it is so freaking annoying to do like swatches with shimmer inks. I'm so sorry this is taking much longer than I expected, particularly for this like one ink that's just so freaking precious about like how you use it, and like it's getting stuck in the back of the nib. Wearingeul. This is definitely a dry ink if it's like barely holding ink. Oh, there it goes. Freaking again. Like this is what's going on with this? Oh, boy, I will definitely not be like writing this with a dip pen after this embarrassing experience. Wearingeul. At least that's finally over. Not a moment too soon. This is a very, very light ink, and definitely like all of those bubbles just kept like leaking out on the back. But I do like the shimmer effect, and again, it seems like it's feathery. I don't know if that's the word for it. It's just like these little, I don't think they're like particles so much. Just maybe I'm pulling up part of the paper fibers because I put too much ink on it or something like that. But, you know, again, we'll see how it actually dries out. I'm like glad I got the set for the sake of, you know, my like Dante passion and like completion and stuff. But like definitely Inferno is by far the most readable of the inks, and then Purgatorio in the correct nib size, and maybe Paradiso if it were like a really, really big nib, like a 1.5 like stub or something like that. But you know, again, like it's a nice set, but again, I really wish Wearingeul would start like working more on like focusing on readable inks instead of, oh, this is a cool concept, but is it necessarily what like would be practical for everyday writing? So thank you guys very much for watching. I will see you soon. Bye.